Right, let's get to this because they're not long clips, these ones, but we're going to have a look at Chippy on breakfast this morning. The first clip is talking about the National Party's response and in general what his thoughts are around the Equal Pay Act and what's happened there.
Government's desperately trying to distract people's attention away from the fact that they unilaterally cancelled the pay equity claims of 33 different workforces, hundreds of thousands of people, most of whom are hard-working and low-paid New Zealand women who are simply asking to be paid fairly. They've extinguished that without any notice, and now they're not willing to tell New Zealanders how much it saved. I mean, I think David Seymour got caught telling the truth here when
Agreed.
he said the quiet bit out loud and said that this had saved the government's budget. It saved them billions of dollars.
Agreed. Thank you, Mr. Seymour.
Well, I think they should tell, hardworking New Zealand women how much extra are they paying for this year's budget because pay equity's been cancelled.
Mr Hipkins, the Prime Minister said many times that Labor made a mess of the books by overspending. So is the belt tightening your fault?
$17 billion was doled.
Actually, I know I'm interrupting. I probably shouldn't be true, but we always talk about there's lots of things that can come back that need to be repeated for the next 12 years. Tax cuts, landlords, tobacco companies. Tax cuts, landlord, tobacco companies. Broken promises, smoke-free 2025. These things, again, ferries, again. And Chippy hits it in this.
$17 billion was doled out last year in tax cuts for landlords, tax cuts for tobacco companies, and so on.
Bingo.
That has contributed significantly to what Nicola Willis refers to as a structural deficit in the government's finances. She said before the last election she could do tax cuts without throwing the books further into the red. That's wrong. Actually, they've thrown the books deeper into the red than probably they've ever been. The responsibility for balancing the budget has rested with Nicola Willis for the last year and a half. She's failed to do that. We had a plan to get the books back into surplus. It was set out before the election. National departed from that. They said, no, we're going to cut all the taxes. They've done that. The people who have benefited are people like landlords who are still increasing rents whilst pocketing the extra money they've got back in tax cuts. And New Zealanders are ultimately the ones paying the price for this government's bad choices.
Right. Number one, Chewie. I've got two other ones which are a bit shorter and one that's very, very short to go as well. But do you want to speak to that at all?
I was really critical of Chris Hipkins yesterday. There's still things that I've been quite critical about him as well. That was near perfect.
Yeah, he had a really good session this morning, and we'll just go straight to the next part because the next part is his conversation around Te Pāti Māori and the suspensions. And normally what I do is I kind of steal their glory and tell you what they're about to say. But he's got a couple of good points. One is about, fist fights. One is about Winston Peters to do with the disproportionate response to Māori MPs in the House.
Do you support the 21-day suspension for the co-leaders and the 7-day suspension for Hana Rāwhiti Maipi Clark?
I think there should be some sanction because the Māori Party broke the rules, and when you break the rules, even in protest, there needs to be some consequence for that. But I think 21 days is absolutely farcical. To put it into context, Winston Peters, well recognised as Parliament's worst...
This is good. Chewie, this is good. You were saying he was good in the last answer? This is good.
Winston Peters, well recognised as Parliament's worst behaved member of Parliament pretty much in all time, been named from Parliament, i.e. suspended from Parliament more than any other MP on record that I could find. If you added up all of his suspensions together over the 50-odd years that he's been in and out of this place...
Just a little
He left
stab.
something on the table there.
Just a little stab
400
there.
years.
So we'll
400 years.
We'll pick it up where he's saying if you added up all of Winston's suspensions, the most he's been suspended more than any other MP. If you added them all up,
50-odd years that he's been in and out of this place, it still wouldn't add up to the 21 days that they're now proposing to suspend the Māori Party for.
I mean, come on, Chippy, on fire, mic drop, great response. This is about another 15, 20 seconds. We'll get to the end of it because he's got more.
So I think that shows it's never been done before in New Zealand's history. And I think, frankly, I struggle to find any examples overseas in other countries of where a government has used its wafer-thin majority to unilaterally suspend its opponents for 21 days, particularly in the middle of a debate around the government's budget.
Very good, Chippy. Very good. And there's one more little clip I'm going to play. Actually, I'll just play it first, Chewie, and then we can wrap up. The last clip is basically Chippy talking about, like, what would they need to do for you to actually to support the suspension? Because he has already said, suspension's probably in order. They broke the rules. But what does he need to see to actually then support it? And Clint referenced this earlier. Clint referenced when National realised that Labor weren't going to support this, then that's probably a clue. Now, what that implies to me, and Clint has internal knowledge. Remember, he was a advisor to Dame Jacinda Ardern, so he was literally in those halls. What he's probably saying, what I'm getting from his inference, is that normally with these kinds of suspensions, it's a process. Everyone gets on board, they all vote yes, and we all move on. So as soon as the party says no, the party bringing forth the suspension being disproportionate should probably have gone, Now, that's what I'm reading, but I think it's a pretty fair read. So what would Chippy need to see to get on board? This is the part of this question.
I've said to the government very clearly that if they bring this back into line with a proportionate response that's in line with how other MPs have been treated for doing the same thing, then we'll continue to uphold the standards of Parliament. Bearing in mind, 2 other MPs have been censured by the Privileges Committee for bullying and intimidating behaviour in this Parliament, neither of whom were suspended from Parliament at all.
So once again, not to be too emotive, we get back to this idea, this truth, this statistical truth, that Māori get convicted of the same crimes, bullying and intimidation, and get a harsher penalty. I just don't know how any person in Parliament could not hang their head in shame when what you're doing in Parliament, the punishment you're handing out in Parliament, is actually representative of the institutionalised racism that you see punishments getting handed out to people getting convictions. Māori in the justice system are twice as likely to do time than non-Māori when they commit and get convicted of the same crime. Chippy just said there's been 2. One of them's Julianne Genter. It was intimidation. It was bullying. She was out of her seat as well, Chewie. In fact, she went over and touched the MP. She lifted his papers up and slammed them down. That you could argue that was worse than Symbols and Haka. No time, 0, nothing whatsoever. Chewie, your chance to rap.
In Julia Genter's case, she was still right.
Yeah, of course.
Because the whole thing was, have you even read this? Which Ducey hadn't. So I get the frustration. Very, very funny. But again, yes, she said I was wrong. She made an apology. Oh, all is forgiven. Winston Peters was kicked out of the House today for a shitty racist joke.
Oh, didn't know that.
So, it just everything is fucking crazy. It just feels like a clown show. I think in all of these interviews and in Hipkins' speech in the House today was especially good. I know I was very critical of him, and I'm sure I will be critical of him again in the future. And that's just because I want Labour, Greens and Pāti Māori to get their shit together and be a cohesive unit with one single objective, is to get this fucking government gone, to put a stake through its heart and get it done. Yep. Don't snipe at each other, don't criticize each other's ideas, build on them, find consensus and common ground.